say, why can't I keep that moving forward?
And when they were, this whole thing that he was going to go to Dallas, I'm like, nope. He wants to see you. Let his bill roll over.
And she's going to be on.
Hey, everyone.
Are we going to do the city in California?
Okay. Evening and welcome to the February 19th, 2025 Board of Directors meeting for DRCOG. I'm going to call this meeting to order. My name is Jeff Baker. I'm an Arapahoe County Commissioner and the chair of DRCOG. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. I want to welcome some new members this evening. We have a new member government. We are now up to 59 entities.
Wow.
So we want to welcome the town of Mountain View. And our member is Emily Mitchum. Are you here, Emily? Okay. And alternate is going to be Laura Dennis. So if you know that. Other new members, we have Lee Barrento from the town of Silver Plume. Okay, welcome. Julie Duran-Mollica from Adams County. She's a former board member as well. Welcome, Julie. Rebecca Lloyd from Clear Creek County. Rebecca, welcome. We have Susan Berriman from Gilpin County. Are you? Excellent. You can move up to the table here if you'd like, if you feel comfortable doing that. Sharon, you were here last time, but I'll introduce you. Sharon Davis from the city of Arvada was our alternate. Now she's the member. And we're welcoming back, I believe, Allison Coombs from the city of Aurora. And she was the alternate and a prior board member. We have new alternates, Kathy Henson from Adams County. My alternate from Arapahoe County is going to be Commissioner Rhonda Fields, which many of you know. She can't make it here tonight, but she'll be my alternate. From Clear Creek County, Jody Hartman Ball. New alternate. And this one I know is here from City of Arvada, Brad Rupert. Thank you and welcome. One last new alternate from the City of Lakewood, Isabel Cruz. Welcome. So with these new members and alternates joining us, we'd like to inform new members for in-person business meetings, we would like only one voting member to participate at the main table. Meaning if both the member and the alternate are present at the meeting, we would kindly ask that the member sit at the main table and the alternate sit in the open seating available. I have one other quick update.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Also want to recognize Jefferson County's alternate, Rachel Zenzinger.
Great, excellent, Rachel. Welcome.
I am not Andy Kerr, but I am Andy Kerr's alternate, so you're welcome.
We're working on it. Yes, no doubt.
I know.
Okay, so that takes care of that.
Sing the socks.
Okay. Okay. Roll call, please, Melinda.
Yes, thank you. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And since we have a lot of new members and alternates, just be aware that even if the member is not present, I always say the member first, and if they are not present, then the alternate will then respond if you're here. All right, here we go. Adams County, Julie Duran-Mollica. Arapahoe County, Jeff Baker.
Here.
Boulder, Claire Levy. City and County of Broomfield, Austin Ward. Clear Creek County, Rebecca Lloyd. Clear Creek County, Jody Hartman Ball. Thank you. Adam Paul, Denver. Kevin Flynn, Denver. Here. Kevin Van Winkle, Douglas County. Here. Susan Barrowman, Gilpin County. Andy Kerr, Jefferson County. Rachel Zenzinger, Jefferson County. Here. Sharon Davis, Arvada. Here. Allison Coombs, Aurora. Here. Bennett, Larry Vittum. Here. And at Mr. Vittum's request, I'd also like to point out that Mayor Royce Pindell is joining us this evening. Thank you for being here. Okay, David Spellman, Blackhawk. Nicole Spear, Boulder. Greg Mills, Brighton. Here. Deborah Mulvey, Castle Pines. Jason Gray, Castle Rock. Here. Tammy Maurer, Centennial. All right, Todd Williams, Central City. Robert Eber, Cherry Hills Village. Susan McGuire, Cherry Hills Village. Steve Douglas, Commerce City.
Here.
Thank you. Michelle Rogers, Dacono. Adam Moorhead, Dacono. Steve Conklin, Edgewater.
Good evening.
Othaniel Sierra, Inglewood. Tim Wright, Inglewood. Emily Bayer, Erie. Here. Linda Montoya, Federal Heights. Sarah Dawn Pearlstein, Federal Heights. Ray Bird, Firestone. Josie Cockrell, Foxfield. Lisa Jones, Foxfield. Wendy Padilla, Frederick. Here. Lynette Kelsey, Georgetown. Here. Rachel Binkley, Glendale. Present. Paul Hazeman, Golden. Lisa Vitry, Golden. Here. George Lance, Greenwood Village.
Here.
Chuck Harmon, Idaho Springs. Brian Wong, Lafayette.
Here.
Jeslyn Sherzai, Lakewood. Here. Stephen Barr, Littleton. Kyle Schlachter, Littleton. Kat Bristow, Lockbuoy. Larry Strock, Lockbuoy. Oh, thank you. Marissa Harmon, Lone Tree. Present. Joan Peck, Longmont. Aaron Rodriguez, Longmont. Judy Kern, Louisville. Present. Holly Rogan, Lyons. Mark Browning, Lyons. Colleen Whitlow, Meade. Here. Paul Sutton, Morrison. Adam Way, Morrison. Emily Mitchum, Mountain View. Laura Dennis, Mountain View. Nicole Sterling, Netherland. Richard Kondo, North Glen.
Here.
John Dyack, Parker. Terrence Kelly, Sheridan.
Here.
I believe I saw Terrence online.
Yeah, I'm online.
Awesome, thank you so much. Lee Bernardo, Silver Plume. Neil Shaw, Superior.
Here.
Justin Martinez, Thornton.
Here.
Sarah Nermella, Westminster. Bud Starker, Wheat Ridge. Darius Pakbaz, CDOT.
Here.
Sally Chafee, CDOT. Bill Soroy, RTD. All right, and with that, Mr. Chair, we definitely have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Melinda. Thank you all for the attendance tonight. It's really good to see everyone. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published. Is there a motion, Director Starker? Have a motion, is there a second? Second. Numerous seconds, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, our agenda is approved. We have a strategic informational briefing tonight. This is a Regional Air Quality Council presentation from Mike Silverstein, the Executive Director of the RAC. So, Mike, you want to come forward and we'll get you started on your presentation. Let's give him a round of applause if we could.
No, you're fine.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much. And I sure appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. And thank you for the invitation from Director Rex to provide an opportunity to talk to you all about the Regional Air Quality Council and the work that we do here in this region to work towards improved air quality. All right. Well, what is the RAC? We are what is termed the lead air quality planning agency, and we have been so for more than 30 years for this region. So our primary focus is developing our region's air quality plans. We also recommend emission reduction approaches, and we directly implement air pollution reduction strategies at the RAC. Our board is a 32-member body. I thought it was tough to wrangle until I see this board, and so I feel for Doug. And so our board, you know, as boards do, they provide us direction. And the governor appoints our board directly. 8 members are from local government here in the region, 5 from state agencies, 1 from DRCOG, and Director Rex is your representative, another from RTD, 1 from the North Front Range MPO, and the rest are from the public and business and industry, academia and transportation agencies and affiliations. So many of you have heard of RAC. I hope you have. Some of you have even served on my board or our board from time to time. And we are not the state. There is, because the governor appoints our board and gives us an executive order, does not mean that, hey, we're a state agency. We're not. We're a private nonprofit. And we're reliant on grants and contracts, primarily with the state, but also from contributions from our member local governments. And so DRCOG, you all are our most generous partner. You provide through what's called the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Grant Program a lion's share of our funding. So we receive millions of dollars a year from DRCOG, and we sure do appreciate it. So thank you very much. Local governments also are excellent contributors to the RAC, as not as a membership, but just as a contributor, because we do represent you all in the air quality conversation. And we receive about $350,000 each year, primarily from local governments in the DRCOG region. And again, we're grateful for those resources. And so, what is our charge here? Well, as you all know, we have an air quality problem. So this is just an excellent example of where we sometimes are, and definitely where we need to be for public health and for a vibrant economy and for improved ecosystems. And so this is really our charge. How do we make things better in our region? And this is a graphic of our domain. It covers the Denver metro region, but it also extends all the way up to the Wyoming border through Larimer and Weld County. So it's a big area. And this is what's called the non-attainment area for air pollution in our Front Range region. And so as a planning agency, it's our job to deal with air quality issues throughout this area. So we bring together ideas, and we do analysis, and we develop strategy and approaches so that we can address our regional summertime ozone pollution. That is really the primary focus of RAC at this time. We've focused on many pollution issues in the past, but summertime ozone pollution is our primary problem, and that's our primary charge from the governor to address. And so, you know, this requires defining the problem and coming up with recommendations and solutions. And it's a regional issue, so it requires regional approaches, and it affects us all throughout the Denver metro and North Front Range region throughout the year, especially in the summertime months. So this was a graphic that kind of says it all about our air quality problem here in the region. Just copied this from the Denver Post at the end of our summer season last year. We had this says 40 days, we had more than 40 days above the federal ozone health standards in just last summer alone. So that's really where we're at. We're approximately a third of the time in the summertime between May and September out of compliance with the federal air quality standards that are put in place to improve and protect public health. And this is a lot of data here, so we don't need to focus on it. Things are improving slightly over time, but it's a vexing problem. We're not making the kind of improvement we need to make. Some summers are better than others. We have pretty much the same emission profile day to day, year to year with improvements, over time. But our meteorology, our summertime weather really is what either helps us or hurts us when ozone pollution builds up. And so you could see over time, we've had, like last year, 41 days above the standard, but we've had much worse air quality on at times. And in the past, when you kind of eyeball this graphic, we had worse air quality. We had more days typically over the standards, and the degree of noncompliance, the levels of summertime ozone were higher as well. So we've made some progress, but we have a lot of work to do. And this graphic here just kind of gives us an idea of who contributes and by how much. So if we look at a typical summertime ozone day that's out of compliance, we could see that vehicles really are the number one source of our pollution. So many of us drive so many miles a day, and there's millions and millions of cars out there, and light duty trucks and heavy duty trucks, but also oil and gas and other industrial sources, lawn and garden equipment, kind of a surprising category, but lawn and garden equipment, a very dirty source of emissions. And then many other categories as well. You could also see at the bottom of the graphic, what we're really faced with is a lot of background concentrations and what we would call natural emissions as well. That gives us kind of one hand tied behind our back approach here. We can't control what's given to us from our upwind neighbors or the global ozone background, but we can make some difference on the local sources. And that's what our primary focus is. And this is another compounding factor, your data here that basically shows the dramatic growth that we experience in our region, all the time. And this goes back towards, to 1990, projections to 2050. There's just more of us doing more and more things all the time in our region, whether it's driving or mowing our lawns or the commercial and industrial activities in our region. We're just faced with this continuous growth in activity, which results in, kind of a stagnation. We see our benefits of emission control programs making a real difference, but when there's more of us doing more and more things, it just kind of counteracts the benefits and the gains we've made. And really, this is why we have a problem in our region. We have those mountains, which we love, to our west that tend to block the prevailing westerlies, those winds that can kind of clean us out, that can disperse pollutants, and then we get upslope flow from the east, then from the south, and everything just kind of builds up, especially on those hot, stagnant summer days, until we see things clear out with a front that comes through or afternoon thunderstorms, and so ozone can build up in our region because of our topography. So what is summertime ozone? It's an air pollutant that's not directly emitted from our vehicles or from our activities, but it's a combination of the emissions with the presence of intense sunlight and temperature in the summer. So we see our highest ozone concentrations on those hot, dry, stagnant summer days. And it's basically everything we do as a society can contribute to the emissions that can form ozone. So it's a really tough problem to address. So our board of directors has given us a charge and has said, hey, there's more work to do. We're not making the progress we need to make. We need to double down and work hard to achieve full compliance with these standards as rapidly as we can. And so we share at RAC this urgency for making these gains, and that we understand that more action needs to be taken. And so that's where we're in this mode right now, in advancing recommendations, developing approaches to recommend to decision makers, because the RAC is not a regulatory body, we're advisory in nature. And so we can only analyze the problem and make recommendations to those that have the ability to affect change. And so we have a number of things at RAC that we do. Not only do we do this ozone planning, we develop the approaches, do the analysis, make recommendations, but we also implement measures. So if you've ever heard, hey, today is a high ozone day, take some action, or you see the signs on the highways that say it's a high ozone day, reduce your driving. That's us. So we're in the business of education and outreach. We use your monies to do this. This is primarily funded by DRCOG and the recommendations that you all have directed to us. But we also implement measures. We have community-based social marketing campaigns, micro-mobility projects. A really exciting program is simply to establish a bike and pedestrian option at low-income housing developments. And so we help fund those efforts. We take money and we incentivize the development of these micro-mobility programs. We provide food truck operators, for example, and an opportunity to go electric. Get rid of the gas generators that chug away all day long at the activity or the lunch or evening events, and to go electric. That's another incentive program that we have. Auto maintenance and vehicle repair programs, finding high-emitting vehicles, and for those low-income people or those that receive a waiver for various reasons from the state program, we just go out and pay for the repair and say, hey, we know you can't afford it. We don't want you driving that old car that's a high emitter, so we'll help you repair that vehicle. It's a very exciting program we're running. And we track the data. We have to report out. We want to make sure our programs are effective. And so we really work hard to ensure that we have good data that justifies why we spend the money where we do. And then we also have had very strong incentive programs for lawn and garden equipment electrification. You and your government staff within your agencies have to be in compliance with a new rule beginning this summer that requires electric or not necessarily electric, but you cannot use gas-powered equipment in the summer months to maintain your parks, your lawn and garden uses in local and state government activities. And so we help to get you to compliance. We've provided millions of dollars to local government and to private operators and to citizens to electrify gas-powered lawn and garden equipment. And so that's another area. And so we're always looking to fund program, but we're always looking to raise money so that we can fund the programs. And so your local contributions have been really very helpful to help us make this happen, as well as the grants from DRCOG and the Department of Transportation and other agencies as well. And so our programs are a bit tenuous right now with all of the federal priorities changing and, frankly, the chaos in the federal funding to grantees by the federal government. So we're cautiously proceeding, but we want to proceed once we get a bit more surety that things are going to be sort of close to normal in this process. So we're kind of slow rolling some of our grant programs. We have some things on hold, but we hope that we can proceed as normal here in a few months. And one thing that has to happen, though, is our ozone plan, a federal requirement, is due to our board in the summer and to the state in the fall. So we're fully underway in developing our next ozone plan to try to attempt to get us into compliance in just a few short years. So we're doing the technical work. The emission reductions evaluations are underway. We need more emission control programs in our region to reduce those emissions, counteract that growth. And so we're looking at what are called consumer products, the paints and solvents and cleaning products that we all use, and they have high emissions. And so we're looking at where we can gain additional emission reductions from those consumer products, from oil and gas operations, from transportation, or again, that a really big source, and from landscape maintenance equipment. What else can we do in this space? And one important assessment that's underway that affects transportation, something you may hear about here in the coming months, refers to regulations or policies or plans or voluntary initiatives, we don't know what yet, that affect what are called indirect sources, those large trip-attracting or trip-generating activities that we all participate in, but cause a lot more vehicle traffic than would be there otherwise, whether it's an event at a stadium or a warehouse distribution facility that is built to to handle all the home deliveries that we all take advantage of. These are causing new emissions we didn't have before. And it's part of our growth, it's part of our economy, it's part of our way of life, and we need to figure out how we can reduce emissions from these, or at least cap emissions, but maybe even see reduced emissions from what we call indirect sources. So stay tuned for more on that. Hopefully we'll be able to announce the work of our stakeholder processes here in the next 6 months or so. So these indirect sources, again, I'm just highlighting this as something that I know you'll hear about and you'll have a lot of questions about, and we're happy to entertain those. We're happy to invite you all to our stakeholder processes or your staff so that you can participate with us in figuring out what we could or should do in this area. So again, it's warehouse distribution centers, industrial and commercial developments, recreation venues, airports, higher education campuses, those obvious trip attracting or trip generating activities or facilities. And what do you do about it? You know, there's trip reduction strategies, vehicle emission reduction strategies, the construction of those facilities. How do you minimize the emissions during construction? Should there be permitting requirements or plan requirements? And what just efficiencies could be deployed in these operations and either required or encouraged or incentivized to make that difference? And so there's lots of these out there, and our work is to figure out where to focus and how to make some progress. So that's all I have for you this evening. I'm happy to take any questions if there's time. I know that the slides will be available to you. If you want to contact me directly, here's my contact information. Contact my staff, go to our website, and thank you for your time.
All right, questions, comments? Director Flynn.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mike. I found myself really depressed when I saw the chart that showed all the sources and then 47.4% coming from outside the area. And it seems that from the menu of those other 15 or so bars, the chances to nibble away at those really doesn't give us much room for reduction. So what are our realistic targets?
Well, it's tough because we do get this. It's what I usually say is about 2/3, 1/3. 2/3 of our ozone is given to us. We don't have a choice. It's coming to us from natural sources or our upwind neighbors, or there's a global ozone background. We contribute downwind to our downwind neighbors to the east of us. Our neighbors to the east are contributing to Europe's ozone. Europe is contributing to Asia's. It's a circular problem. And so we all have a fairly consistent background. But because of what we do here in our local area and our topography that allows things to build up, we exceed the standards, where Colorado Springs doesn't, or Cheyenne doesn't because they have the great meteorology. We have a big oil and gas field on top of all the urban activities in our region. So we just have this, we're in a sweet spot in reverse for pollution to build up. And it's always been a problem for many other pollutants as well. And so our approach is to find reasonable ways to gain emission reductions, whether it's finding either uncontrolled or under-controlled sources that we can figure out what we can do to make that progress. And knowing that we have wildfire now, but with climate change and warming temperatures that make ozone even worse. And so we need to figure out how we can discount the impacts of wildfire in our analysis so we can focus on where we can make the difference with the local emissions.
Have you been able to identify, or can you identify a trend line for those outside sources? Do they fluctuate, or are they gradually increasing year over year? In other words, everything we do to reduce our own source or sources can be outstripped by a rise in what we're getting from Asia or California. What's coming at us? Is that increasing?
It's fairly flat because we see the same our upwind neighbors have implemented excellent emission control programs as well. Not as aggressive as Colorado has, but pretty good. But we see the West is growing. So it's the same thing in our region. We see these vehicle miles traveled and our population going up by the millions in just a very short amount of time. The West used to be sparsely populated. We have we're everywhere, and we're doing everything all the time. And so we have big cities upwind of us. We didn't have, Vegas wasn't very big in the old days. Now it's a giant area, Phoenix and Salt Lake, and even the rural areas, there's just growth all around us, and oil and gas development that wasn't here or wasn't as productive 20 years ago is booming in Wyoming and in Utah, and power generation using coal, for example, is the opposite. It's essentially leaving us and being replaced with gas and renewables and other sources. So it's very complicated, but it's pretty flat, the background.
Director Levy and then Director Douglas online.
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to just thank you so much for being here and for the work that you're doing, particularly trying to look at those indirect sources and see what they contribute. I was curious about the source of your emissions data. Where do you get that?
Sure. For industrial facilities, at many sources, it's measured. So especially large industrial facilities, they have to track the emissions that come out of the stack. So there's monitors built in, and these are at the biggest facilities. Most of it is calculated. There's engineered approaches to come up with our estimates of emissions for everything, whether it's an industrial facility or our vehicles. There's measurements of, say, the traffic amount that we have, and then those traffic counts that are recorded all the time in our region are then combined with emission factors based on the age of the fleet, how much a certain type of vehicle emits versus another. It's quite extensive, but most of it it's calculated. But it's based on, it has foundation in the equipment counts that we have in the region, and the studies that have been done in the past to quantify and measure typical emissions from, say, consumer products, and then apply those typical emissions to a big, or scale them up to a big urban area like Denver.
So do the components of ozone like have a signature where you can tease out what is coming from vehicles?
We wish.
Yeah.
It is all based on modeling. The only way we can't put a tracer on or take ozone is O3, just 3 oxygen atoms combined to make ozone. It's that simple, and you can't trace the components of ozone back to their sources. We have to estimate the emissions, model it, and then we kind of backcast to attribute, well, oil and gas had this amount of emissions, and the emissions are different. So if a vehicle exhaust is highly reactive, it wants to become something else because it's the chemicals that come out of the tailpipe are what we call highly photoreactive with sunlight, and they want to combine with other pollutants to form ozone. But emissions from oil and gas, for example, have a very low reactivity for the most part. And so they don't readily form ozone compared to other sources, but there's so much of them that bulk of emissions results in a very strong contribution as well. So it's really complex.
That's fascinating. I'm kind of curious on the theory around the indirect sources. Is the idea that, so it concentrates trips in a certain area, but is it the congestion and the additional emissions from sitting in traffic, or is the theory that these are induced trips that wouldn't be happening otherwise? I'm just wondering, with some of these, I can imagine like warehouse distribution centers, if our goods and services didn't come directly to us, we would be driving to get
Sure.
those. So could you just expand a little bit more about what the theory is behind the indirect source?
Right, and indirect sources, and one of your top staff members here at DRCOG, Ron Papsdorf, said, I have a real problem with that phrase, indirect sources. So I think we need to come up with a more easily understood term. But it's really these activities that are inducing trips or attracting us or trips to the facility. Say there's a concert or there's a ball game. Hey, if we didn't have that concert, those trips wouldn't be there. Maybe we would be doing something else, sure. But we know that there is an obvious, something out there that's attracting us, and we're getting in our cars and we're driving to them for the most part. or they're the warehouse distribution facility where they're taking in product to fill that warehouse, so lots of truck trips in and out of that facility, but then they're also distributing to, say, from the King Soopers warehouse to the King Soopers store, and there's lots of vehicle trips to and from, or from a Amazon distribution center where we're getting home delivery, or FedEx or UPS. So it's really treating them, a sense, in isolation, to at least study what kind of impact they have as individuals, say warehouse A, B, and C, or distribution facility D, E, and F, and then figuring out what they're doing, how much are they contributing to trips, what kind of trips are they making, how far are they driving, what kind of vehicles do they drive, is it small delivery vans or heavy-duty diesel? They all have different emission profiles, so we're evaluating all that and trying to study with stakeholders, with the industry, with the venues, with our public, to determine, well, what's happening, and are there opportunities to reduce either the trips or the emissions that these trips cause, knowing that they're going to be there. We're not saying you can't do those kinds of things, of course not, but it's saying how can we help reduce the emission footprint of the particular activity.
Director Douglas.
Thank you, Chair Baker, and thank you, Mike, for the presentation. And I had the privilege of serving on the Regional Air Quality Council, and I do understand how you guys track things. And I know that
Can you
was
speak
also
up
stated.
a little bit, Mayor? Sorry.
Sure. It was also stated that the governor, his goal was to have 1 million registered EVs in the state of Colorado. How close are we to even having 200,000? Did you hear that? Were you able to hear me, Mike?
Yes, I think we've got some interpretation of your question with the sound problem here. I know that we are on track. Your question is how many electric vehicles are on the road, and are we on track to meet the 2030 goals? And I believe we're in a strong place. I don't know if we're exactly there or if we're even exceeding. I know that we've exceeded the sales targets, because the rule for Colorado basically says auto dealers, the industry, they must sell a certain percentage of their of sales must be electric or electric hybrid. And so we've surpassed California as the leading state in EV sales per unit of sale. Not the raw number, because California is so big, but that percentage of new sales is now #1 in the nation for electric vehicles due to the state incentives, the federal incentives, and just the desire to go EV, because it's a really, really good way to drive and a good way to go. But I believe we're well on our way, and we're trying to take full credit for that, what we call EV penetration in the market, in our inventories of mobile source emissions. So we say, hey, there's a great strategy. It's driving down mobile source emissions. And by doing that, we don't need to look at something else, because we're making good progress in that area.
Okay, and the last question, because some
Any
of
other
these have already.
questions? Director Kondo.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It just actually reminded me about the letter that we did to EP 8. I don't know if you can answer this, or maybe our executive. I wonder what happened. If there's been any action.
Well, I will answer that, because that was, if you recall, the letter that Director Conner was referring to was a letter that Intermountain West Metropolitan Planning Organization sent to the administration, the Biden administration at the time, requesting additional research be done, because we believe that the conditions in the Intermountain West are a little different than other parts of the country, because the mitigation strategies that are being developed by the MPOs in our region, and we're just not seeing the success that we hope that we would see. So we're trying to get a better understanding. We did receive a letter back from the Biden administration, from the EPA administrator, saying that they're going to look into it. We are re-upping and reprioritizing that letter as we speak for the new administration, hoping that we get a response that they're going to do some additional research. So stay tuned on that.
Thank you. And then just a follow-up question. You know, you obviously talked about grants and funds, but I didn't see a whole lot about partnership with other, say, for example, maybe Green Sheen Paints in Denver and all this other stuff. Is that also part of your overall program, this partnership with various vendors, providers, et cetera?
Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned, we're not a regulatory body, we're advisory, but that's, you know, only part of our program is plan development, advising, and recommending, you know, maybe regulatory or strong strategies. But 3/4 of what we do at RAC is program implementation. And so we partner with the Lawn and Garden Association and manufacturers of lawn and garden equipment, public agencies and private contractors to encourage electrification and fund it where we have resources to help them take the steps they need to get off gas and go electric where they can. We partner and we do stakeholder outreach with the consumer products. We just had a large stakeholder meeting today saying, where can we, you know, if we need to seek reductions from consumer products, paint, solvents, cleaning products, anything that has a fragrance or an odor or, hey man, you're using it, it's you put it on wet and it dries. Well, guess what? If it's not totally water-based, it's got a volatile compound in it that's helping form ozone in the summer. So we're working with all of these partnerships and we're establishing partners, and we're working with them in our voluntary programs, our Simple Steps, Better Air program. That's our education outreach program, where we partnered with RTD and transit agencies up and down the Front Range, and TMAs, Transportation Management Associations, and oil and gas companies, and just Xcel Energy, to get our word out, to partner with them on voluntary and incentive programs, whether it's just education or it's encouraging change. So we do our best. We're a small group. There's only 10 of us, so we can only get to so many at a time, but we sure do our best. Thank you.
Director Mills, and then Director Binkley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, sir, for your presentation and the details that you brought to us. Now, you mentioned that ozone is measured throughout the summer. Is it also measured throughout the year, like all 365 days?
Every minute of every day.
Every day. So it's not just a summertime measurement.
Correct.
And when you say we're out of compliance about a third of the summer,
yes,
is that the 3 months of the summer, or is that the 5 months that is typically warm?
Well, our typical summer season is May through September.
Okay, so
when we see 30 to 40 exceedance days, when we do the math, it's about, a third of the time, especially June, July, August, which is our peak. Those are the 3 months where we're likely to see, because of temperature, these high values.
And when you say we're out of compliance, has that compliance standard changed over the 30-year span that you have on the slide?
Sure. The ozone standards have been tightened. So the data that I presented are based on the 2 ozone standards that are in play right now. So we backcasted to say, if we had these standards, from the beginning of the period of the data, how many days over the current standards would we be? So it's easy to see if we have a trend in our values. So we have a standard from 2008, which is 75 parts per billion of ozone, and then a tougher standard of 2015, which is down to 70 parts per billion. So EPA has 2 standards in play. We have to achieve both of them.
And so that's the different colors I see on your 6th slide, if you want to go over there.
Yeah, I could go back.
As I look at these peak areas, say in the recent years, 2012 and 2021, if memory serves me, those were really high fire seasons. Absolutely. Not only for our state, but for the region. And obviously we can't control what happens downwind. So I fail to see how the items that we're trying to do to save our air compliance, that it's in the following slide, I don't know how all that's going to add up to better emissions when wildfires still happen in all of our neighboring states. Wind from us.
Yeah, excellent observation. 2021, as you can see, was our worst ozone season ever. We also had very intense fire impacted through the month of July. That was just We had transported smoke, we had some local fires, but a lot of it was from upwind neighbors, Oregon, California, Washington, Idaho, even in Canada, recently in Canada, impacting us last year. So the wildfires added to an already awful problem because we also had the most intense meteorology in the West than we've ever seen. We've had what we call a high-pressure dome that sat over the western U.S. for months, and we didn't get the convective activity, the monsoon flow, the afternoon thunderstorms that can just shut off the driver, the sunlight, and ozone concentrations just dramatically drop once the sun goes down or you get cloud cover. So if we were to take wildfire out of these values, we would see lower values throughout time. So we do account for wildfire in our planning. So these might be the numbers. And if the state and EPA going forward, we can't do anything about the past, if they take an active role in saying, hey, that day just doesn't count because wildfire was such a strong contributor to the problem. Or last year, the analysis was up into mid-July, we didn't have wildfire, hardly at all. And then we had a slug of smoke for the second half, and our values were still way over the standard. They just got even worse. They're about 10 parts per billion, even higher on many days with these smoke occurrences. So these data do reflect the wildfire impact, but it's only exacerbating the problem.
Right, and I just want to remind the people in this room, in 2021, it was the year of the Marshall Fire, so I'm sure that counted since that was the last 2 days of the calendar year. And also in 2012, I looked it up, we had the Waldo Canyon Fire, which was a big deal out in El Paso County, the Hyde Park Fire out in Larimer County, and the Flagstaff Fire in Boulder County. That all contributed to these numbers.
Absolutely, they do.
Thanks.
Director Binkley.
Hello, how are you? Thank you. I have a question about when you tell the public that it's a bad day, what is, if any, the drop that you see happening?
Okay, thank you for the question. We don't see a drop at the monitor. If we announce with our state partners that tomorrow, the afternoon and the next day are going to be high ozone events, typically one day at a time in the summer months. And so we encourage people to take action, carpool, reduce their driving, fill up the gas tank, mow the lawn after 5 o'clock when the sun isn't so intense so that those vapors don't contribute to ozone as readily. And we have an industrial outreach too, where we're saying industry partners, take voluntary action in your operations to defer maintenance, to do things on another day or another time of the day, because that's important, that could defer these emissions, that could cause it. So we don't have a technique where we can say, well, if people didn't take those actions, the numbers would have been something. Ozone is going to be ozone at the monitors. We can't tell how much of an impact we can't measure the impact directly. We have to calculate or estimate based on surveys and studies what programs may have resulted. But frankly, it's not an all hands on deck situation with our public. They don't hear the message and say, I take the afternoon siesta, as I call it, and I'm not going to do anything. We all do our regular routines pretty much all the time, regardless of our messaging. So we're hoping we can reach people and convince them to do little things, a simple step that can make an individual difference, or if they're sensitive to air pollution, they know that they could take the necessary precautions. They're not exercising in the afternoon outdoors. They're staying indoors when ozone levels are high. Their asthmatic child, they're protecting them from outdoor exposure to air pollution. So it's education and outreach for protection, but also to encourage action. But we don't see the numbers change. We can't tell that they're changing based on our behavior. Because the monitor is measuring a pollutant in the air every minute of every day, all the time. And you might see a drop, but at ozone at a monitor for a minute or an hour, but it could be because of a passing cloud. It knocked that solar radiation down ever so slightly, and the thunderstorm went away, and then the ozone went back up because it's that sensitive to sunlight. So we really can't tease out directly the impact of action.
Am I still on? But what about over time from when we have done that versus when we haven't done that? Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. So when people, if it's not an ozone action day, we know the ozone numbers are going to be lower and won't exceed the standard just because of our meteorology. Our emissions are pretty consistent day to day. So if we know it's going to be a cloudy, rainy day, we're going to see lower ozone because there's not the sunlight in the afternoon that drives the chemical reaction. But the next day when we have a sunny plus 90 plus degree day, we're going to see the numbers go way up there. And so it's really tough to distinguish between the behaviors day to day. We just can't do it.
Executive Director Rex.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. I just wanted to add to that with regarding to kind of the history, and I've been involved in this kind of business now since the early 90s, and the one thing on the mobile source side, right, that we deal with primarily here at DRCOG, the two things that have really moved the needle through the years is vehicle technology and cleaner fuels. Those are the two movers. Everything else we do are really playing in the margins on some things. I would suggest it's a quality of life issue for a lot of those other things. But, and as Mike suggested, you know, our air quality has gotten significantly better from the early 90s. It's just that the standard is also being lowered, right? So we're chasing it all the time. And for good reasons, I'm not suggesting that, but it's, in this field, it's kind of frustrating, you know, when you see your emissions going down like this, but also you're just chasing the standard. And that's kind of where we are right now. And I appreciate all the work that Mike does at the RAC. He's such a valuable partner for DRCOG. And as he mentioned, you know, RAC is responsible for making a recommendation on the state implementation plan, which is our plan in getting back into attainment. And part of that conversation and how it relates back to us is that mobile sources, of course, is a major emitter. And we negotiate the budget for mobile sources. And then that budget, we then use for our transportation planning work so that when we do our air quality conformity determination on our regional plan, we have to stay within that budget. So it's a great working relationship, and thank you for everything you do, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Silverstein. He also sits on the Regional Transportation Committee, so wanted to mention that. We're going to move on to report of the chair. I have a public hearing announcement. The Denver Regional Council of Governments has scheduled a public hearing for March 19th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. to receive comments on the draft 2026 through 2029 Transportation Improvement Program and associated air quality conformity determination. Further information about this public hearing is available on DRCOG's website, including the draft documents and how to provide comment no later than March 19th, 2025. I have one other quick update before we go on to reports of the subcommittees. DRCOG's Regional Building Decarbonization Oversight Committee. We have a few changes that we wanted to announce here tonight. Director Douglas is currently serving in one of the 4 DRCOG seats. Well, he's going to be moving to one of the 2 seats reserved for the utility sector. If you remember, Director Douglas serves on the board of United Power, and he's graciously agreed to move to that seat. As a result, Director Nicole Spear, currently an alternate on the Oversight Committee, will fill the empty DRCOG seat by virtue of the fact that she had the next highest votes of the alternates that were elected in that election. So, congratulations to Director Spear. Next up is a report from the Performance and Engagement Committee.
Good evening. I'm Steve Conklin, immediate past chair of DRCOG, and I've been filling in as secretary since spring, which has been fun. And the secretary chairs the Performance and Engagement Committee. We have a bunch of new people here tonight, so I thought I'd take like 30 seconds and explain what P&E is. Basically deals with the performance of the executive director, does his review, works on the board retreats, the board awards, just a number of those people, activity, learning opportunities are what comes out of P&E. So we hit on a couple of those tonight. We got our preview of the award process from Amber Lieberman. Thank you very much, Amber, for previewing the award celebration, which is Wednesday, August 27th. At your seat is information on nominating people to that. The Performance and Engagement Committee helps staff with selecting a couple of those awards. So information on that. We also talked about the 2025 board retreat. We typically do a retreat every year. We're actually looking at that cadence changing, which ties into both of the next items. 2025, a board retreat, and hopefully in 2026, a peer exchange where we would actually go someplace else and meet with another COG somewhere else in the country, and staff is working on that. So P&E has been working with our outstanding DRCOG staff on those efforts, and the hope is that the peer exchange would happen sometime in spring, probably of 2026. So the board retreat is going to be in Denver, in the area, and I will leave it to staff to get more details once the date is absolutely positively honed in, although I think we know what the date's going to be, and also the location. So thank you to the Performance and Engagement Committee for all of your work on that. It's cool that we have so many new people here tonight. If you have questions, ask people that have been around the table. We are happy to help. This is not nearly as intimidating of a group as it may seem, being as large as we are. And it has been my pleasure serving as the chair of Performance and Engagement for this little part of a year, but I'll still be here.
Thank you, Director Conklin. We have a report from the Finance and Budget Committee, Director Kondo, and feel free to take some time to discuss what F&B does.
Hi, Rich Kondo, and I'm board treasurer and chair of the F&B committee, which I think has a really cool name, F&B. It's like H&G, hello and goodbye. Actually, this was my last meeting of the F&B. Basically, our charge is a small group of folks will review a number of contracts, grants, and things of that nature that authorizes our executive director to receive monies and or spend monies and or negotiate contracts. And it's been very insightful, I suppose, if you call it that, because it's all municipal governments and counties obviously deals with grants, but almost all of our money is grant related. So just being able to understand the budgeting, the audits and things of that nature, and there are audits that go on out the wazoo. So having kind of dabbled and lived in that world, I really do appreciate Jenny. 1 second, I don't know if she's out there in the crowd, but she definitely keeps me out of trouble. And what really, I think, drives home how important this group is, and I hope that for those of you who are not currently either on performance engagement or budget and finance and budget, consider doing a tour of duty on there, because I think you'll learn a lot. I certainly did. But when I got into the position, Melinda came over with these digital signature cards and asked me to sign my name. I thought to myself, oh my God, am I signing away my first child, or am I buying a bunch of Teslas? But in all seriousness, it's been great. And do it without the support of Paul Hazeman, who is the vice chair. He's participating virtually, I believe, and everybody else that's on the committee. Basically, what we did today was to, one of the first items for the decarbonization committee is to authorize our executive director to start spending money, well, on a provisional basis, for the advertising, marketing, and promotion, and as well as receipt and spending of some money for the band pool services that DRCOG provides to the agent. If there aren't any questions, that concludes my report. Thank you again.
Thank you, and my personal thanks to Director Conklin and Director Kondo for all their work on those subcommittees, as well as to my vice chair, Director Whitlow. So thank you. Now we're going to move on to the report of the executive director, Doug Rex.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much, and good evening to everybody. And very warm welcome to the new board members and alternates. We appreciate your commitment to this collaborative. We really, truly do appreciate it. And special shout outs to what is it? What old is new again, or what's new is old again, whatever the statement is. But Director Durant-Mullica, Director Zenzinger, Director Coombs, thank you all so very much for taking another shot at DRCOG. We appreciate your involvement. And Mayor Pindell, it's great to see you again, my friend. Appreciate you being here. I just have a couple things real quick. So I wanted to start with the 2025 award celebration. This is our annual celebration of the board. This is your event where we celebrate the people, projects, and plans that elevate the region's quality of life. We've just opened up the nominations in multiple categories, and you'll see a flyer at your placement tonight that kind of speaks to those. For some of the details of the event, it will be held on August 27th at the Sewell Ballroom. Again, this is 3 years in a row for us at the Sewell. It's a wonderful facility, of course, and we're very excited about returning. So please, if you just take that flyer back and share it with your folks in your communities, that would be wonderful. The deadline for applications on projects and the nomination for the various categories is December 18th. And if you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to myself or Steve Erickson, our communications director. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. The last thing I might just mention real quick is on federal funding. I know everybody in this room is having conversations about it, and I just wanted to give you my take as it relates to DRCOG's funding and the like. So personally, again, this is my opinion, I feel pretty comfortable where we are with our longstanding programs, most notably our federal funding associated with the Metropolitan Planning Organization, our transportation funding, as well as our funding associated with the Area Agency on Aging through the Older Americans Act. Both of those acts, of course, are authorization acts, and they're longstanding. We have not had any issues with reimbursement of those two programs, which is wonderful. The one program that we're really keeping a strong eye on is our EPA grant, that $200 million grant on the decarbonization program. I was going to share a different message than what I can share today because the reimbursement portal that we use for that has been frozen since the change in administration. However, today that portal was open, so that was certainly great news, and so we remain optimistic about proceeding with that grant. But we're going to proceed cautiously with that. You noticed that Director Kondo mentioned, one of the RFPs or consultant selections that went to Finance and Budget tonight was related to marketing firm to work on this specific program. They gave me the authority to negotiate and execute that contract, but we are not going to give the notice to proceed until such time that we get more clarity at the federal level. So I just want to make you aware of that we are working very cautiously in that space, very nimble. The staff that we have hired for this grant will continue to be in place, and they're working their hearts out. So we appreciate everything they're doing, and hopefully this will break through here real quick. So I just want to share that with you all. Yeah, and the other thing I might mention is in the proposed federal budget, at least the House version, it talks about some significant cuts to Medicaid. Now, we don't receive Medicaid at DRCOG, but I think the fair from our perspective is that once and if that Medicare monies is cut, then older adults that rely on that funding are then going to be coming to us for services, and we don't have the services. We already have waiting lists on almost all of our programs, and we're just fearful of what that's going to do to the community. So I just wanted to share that as well, that we're very anxious about that perspective. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that great news, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to public comment. Up to 45 minutes is allocated now for public comment, and each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. If there are additional requests from the public to address the board, time will be allocated at the end of the meeting to complete public comment. The chair requests that there be no public comment on issues for which a prior public hearing has been held before this board. Consent and action items will begin immediately after the last speaker. And we have one member of the public here to address the board, Mr. Randy Loeb. Mr. Loeb, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a wonderful end, which is a codicil to what I was coming here for, and that is that Metro Denver Homeless Initiative, which I at one time was the president of the board of, has also received notice that it's funding for allocations for millions and millions of dollars that I helped generate as applications for grants was frozen. And I was reading about it today because I was so concerned about all the groundwork that we had done over decades. And I was there when we didn't have any staff at all. And now there's like 25 of them. So I'm kind of concerned because I decided to live in an intentional community in Lakewood. I'm no longer in Denver. And so I feel kind of like we need to listen to Ralph Waldo Emerson's idea of simplicity. Simplicity, simplicity, he wrote. Because the fact is that the way we're living is for the most part that nothing is going to basically change, and we're going to get up in the morning and still do the same things we did yesterday. I'm of the opposite feeling, and I'm 74. And what I'm leaving to my great-grandchildren, it scares me. And if it doesn't scare everybody in this room, I don't know when you're going to awaken, because it's really something that's palpable. When you look around you at people, when you come to work, and I work at the EPA, by the way, and you see them freezing to death on the street, and you say to yourself, what in the world are we doing with normal activity when we have people who live with such chaos and poverty of spirit? And how do we protect the quality of life everywhere? I had the luxury of speaking to a person from Georgetown at the beginning when I came here, and I was really fascinated by our connections. And I said this the last time I came here, that if we don't take care of the microcosm of where we are and your responsibility to ensure that we are safe and sound, then no one will. Because it's up to us in our local communities to make that happen. Because it's a real problem when we basically neglect one part of our society, whether it be immigrants or people who have been here all their lives, like Vanessa, her name is I can't get it right this second because I'm too emotional, but she lived in our church in Sanctuary, and I have fear for her children. And I fear for the children of all of these families that are the backbone of our country, that we don't make sure that they're safe. And we don't keep on working because the federal government actually is not what we count on. It's you. It's everyone who's here, everyone who's on that phone, everyone who basically comes here must understand their responsibility because it's pregnant. It's absolute that we protect our country and our society from further destruction. Thank you for your time and energy.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here from the public that would like to offer public comment? Do we have anyone online? Nobody online? I will end public comment with that. We'll move on to our consent agenda. There are 3 items on our consent agenda. This is item number 9 on your agenda. We have the summary of the January 15th meeting. We have appointees to the Performance and Engagement and Finance Budget Committees. And we have amendments to the fiscal year 2024-2027 Transportation Improvement Program. Does any director wish to remove any of those from consent agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda. Motion was second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the consent agenda has been approved. We have a number of action items this morning. My goodness. You can tell I'm a commissioner. We don't have evening meetings. We have. Sorry, yeah. Sorry. Number 10 is election of officers. And for that, I'm going to call upon, Doug, do you want to introduce it or do we go right directly to Nicole?
Yeah.
Director Spear.
Thank you so much. So the nominating committee had 2 meetings on January 7th and February 3rd. I served as chair and Director Maurer as vice chair. Other members included Directors Conklin, Flynn, Kerr, and Ward. And thank you to everyone for taking on the extra meetings and work this winter. Thank you also to everyone who submitted applications to serve as board officers. This was our first time as well to test out the new process that we adopted as a board shortly before the application. So thank you to the board for making this process more streamlined this year. We're really grateful to everyone who expressed interest in serving on the as an officer. After discussion and consideration, as well as confirming the nominee's willingness to serve in the recommended roles, which is always important, this year's nominating committee recommends the appointments noted in agenda item 10. Director Whitlow as vice chair, Director Kondo as secretary, and Director Sharazai as treasurer. Chair Baker will continue to serve as chair. Thank you, Chair. And Director Conklin will serve as immediate past chair. And just thank you again to everyone who submitted applications and everyone who served on the nominating committee, including Executive Director Rex and Melinda for the technical support.
Thank you. Is this a motion? Okay. So Chair would entertain a motion to approve the election of officers as presented. Is there any further discussion? I guess I should ask first. Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Who made them? Judy? Okay, thank you. And second? Second? Gotcha. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? And thank you very much for the hard work of the nominating committee. There's a lot more that goes into it than what just took place over the last 4 minutes. So thank you very much. We have a discussion to select representatives to serve on the Regional Transportation Committee and other committees. So Director Doug Rex.
I'll go ahead and do this one. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much. And again, I want to express my appreciation to those on the nominating committee and the time to make these recommendations today. So we had, this is again a new approach for us. Typically, we used to do kind of, votes from the floor on all of these without recommendations from the nominating committee. So if you look on page 2 of this agenda packet, so we had several regional committees that we renew annually. The first is the Regional Transportation Committee, and the Regional Transportation Committee is primarily made up of DRCOG, RTD, and CDOT. We collectively have, doing quick math, 13 of the 19 seats that are on that committee. We also have special interest and business interest, on there. And it's a great committee. It is unlike any other committee of MPOs around the country. It is, one committee is a true collaborative of those three bodies of the MPO. It's the MPO Trinity, CDOT, DRCOG, RTD. And what makes it unique is that the action that the RTC takes for transportation-related program, policy and funding initiatives, the board has to take the exact same motion. If they do not, then it loops back around to the RTC to reconsider based on the motion then that the board makes. So that's pretty unique, right? And I think it's pretty cool. I know I'm kind of wonkish on this stuff. So anyway, so we have 5 seats. 3 are reserved, 1 for the executive director, 1 for the board chair, and 1 for the board vice chair. We have 2 open seats, and we received 1 name willing to serve, and that was Director Mulvey. There she is. That was Director Mulvey, and we appreciate you doing that. So we have 1 seat available. So here's the good news. It meets Tuesdays before the board at 8:30 in the morning. So, yeah, right. No, but the good, well, I mean, I guess the good news is we feed you. And that started when Kevin was chair. But, yeah, so we really do need one more member, in order for us to have our full complement. For anyone that might be interested in doing that, we'd love to entertain that. And I will just throw it to the chair if you want to have that conversation.
Nominations are open. You can self-nominate. You can just raise your hand if you're willing to participate in that. We'd be happy to, who had?
Tammy's got it.
Tammy had it? Oh,
Back it up.
Tammy. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Director Mauer.
I'd like to nominate myself for the RTC committee.
Early riser.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Director Ward?
Some alternates?
Yeah, alternates, I don't know why I thought it was off. I will nominate myself as an alternate to the RTC as I currently am.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so what Director Ward is referring to, so we do have, whoever wants to serve as an alternate to be called at the last minute, hopefully not at the last minute, but hopefully to serve in the absence of the member. It's nice that, because we have 5 seats on the RTC. CEDA has 4, RTD has 4. So we'd like to, CEDA's here. I don't.
Listening.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Anywho, so anyway, so if we could have a couple alternates, I think that would be wonderful.
Turned it off. Director Carmela.
Thank you so much. I would also like to nominate myself as an alternate.
Thank you very much. Director Conklin.
And Mr. Chair, I've been an alternate, and I'm happy to continue in that role, so I would nominate myself as well.
All right, thank you. So we have 4. Are you recording these?
1 member and 3.
1 member and 3 alternates. That is what we currently have.
Including Director Mulvey, so.
Exactly. Any other comments or discussion on this? I would take a motion to ratify this. We have a motion from Director Lance.
Second.
And a second from Director Davis. Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you all for stepping up for that. Director Rex?
Thank you, sir, very much. So I'll take the State Transportation Advisory Committee next. So that is the membership of that is primarily the 15 transportation planning regions throughout the state. They meet at CDOT. Well, they meet virtually from most of their meetings. I think they meet quarterly in person?
They meet twice a year.
Oh, just twice a year in person. So it's on the, what Thursday? First Thursday of the month, in the morning time frame, and Director Ray Bird has submitted his name, and we thank you, sir, for stepping up. One of our newer members, been around since July-ish, during the summer months, so we appreciate him doing that. Just a little bit of background on Director Bird. He also serves on the executive committee of the Colorado Motor Carriers Association, so he has some chops when it comes to transportation. I know he's also working in the transportation distribution field as well. So we're truly appreciative of him stepping up. So, but we do need an alternate as well. And the stack operates a little differently than a lot of boards. The member and the alternate are welcome to sit at the table. I think Mayor Mills would attest to this. That and you're welcome to participate in all the conversations and everything. It's just that we have one vote, right, at the board. So I just wanted to share that. We would entertain anybody who's interested.
Yes, anybody who would like to be an alternate on the stack. Director Ward.
I will also nominate myself to be an alternate stack.
Great, thank you very much. Any other interest in serving on stack? I'm not seeing any. I would entertain a motion to approve Director Bird and Director Ward to be the alternate. Director Mayor Starker.
So moved, Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Director Condo. So there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. Thank you and congratulations. Director Rex.
Thank you, sir, very much. So E470, we also have a seat on the E470 board. And Deborah Mulvey, who is currently our E470 rep, is willing to step up and do that again. We thank you very much. She does a wonderful job of providing those reports to us. We do need an alternate as well. In the past, I know we've kind of utilized other board members that are on E470, whether that be Director Dyack, and I know now the chair also serves on that. But we need an alternate. I'll turn to you, sir.
Thank you. Any self-nominations?
I could self-nominate. I'm actually in.
There we go.
Round.
Yeah. So thank you. That's as alternate.
As an alternate.
So the motion would be for Director Mulvey to be the primary member and Director Duran Mullica to be the alternate. Any discussion? Is there a motion? I guess. Motion to.
So move.
Mayor Lance?
I'll second.
And Director Ward seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Advisory Committee on Aging, which is our internal committee associated with the older adults programs that we do at DRCOG. We had no new board members throw their name in the hat wanting to serve on that committee, which is fine. I'm just looking and scanning the room right now for the existing members of AAA, the ACA, and their willingness to continue to participate. That does not require a motion. But I know Director Kern, Director Conklin, who else? Maybe that's it. But we appreciate your continued willingness to do that. We would like to offer up, if there are any members from the floor that would like to participate, that'd be great.
And alternates participate in this committee?
Oh, Director Hazeman as well, yes, he's a member of the ACA.
Okay. Yes,
Can alternates participate in this committee?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Kathy Henson from Adams County is interested on this as well.
Yeah. Can you get her information to?
Yep. And you
Linda?
probably already have it, but yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. Economic Development District Advisory Committee.
Yeah, so this is the last one on the list, and this is a new committee for us. It actually hasn't even met yet. We're not quite sure when they're going to meet, but we appreciate the three names that are willing to serve on this committee: Justin Martinez, Jeslyn Sherazai, as well as Colleen Whitlow. I appreciate you. Flo, we have up to 4, is it? So we can have one more? Because I know, do I get a seat on that? Okay. Okay, so we have one more seat available if you're interested in serving on the Economic Development District Advisory Committee.
Director Coombs.
Yes, so I would move to nominate myself as the 4th member.
Excellent, thank you. So we have, can I have a motion to approve the Economic Development District Advisory Committee members as Director Martinez, Director Sherazai, Director Whitlow, and Director Coombs? Thank you, Director Vittum.
Second.
Thank you. Mayor. God.
Mayor.
Wait till you get up here.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, that motion carries. So that concludes that action item. Thank goodness. All right. Next up is item number 12. This is attachment G, discussion of the 2025 federal safety targets and adjusted federal bridge condition targets. We're going to be introduced, this topic is going to be introduced by Jacob Rieger. Jacob?
Okay, thank you, and good evening. Jacob Rieger, Multimodal Transportation Planning Manager at DRCOG. So this item relates to two federally required performance measures. There are actually 5 performance measures total that the federal government requires us to set and to update periodically. 3 of them are managed by the Federal Highway Administration, and 2 of them are managed by the Federal Transit Administration. These are on different cycles. The safety one, which is one that we'll talk about tonight, is annual. We do this every year at this time of year. The bridge one, which is the second one that we'll talk about, so the 2 on the far left of the slide, is actually a 2 to 4 year target. Some of these others also have different kind of cadences for when we deal with them. So again, tonight we're dealing with the safety targets, which is known as PM or Performance Measure 1, and the bridge condition or infrastructure condition, which is PM2. So we're going to start with safety. For the safety performance measure, we're looking at all public roads in the DRCOG MPO region, so our kind of metropolitan planning organization, the more urban part of our region. Data is provided by CDOT, really from the Department of Revenue through CDOT and then to DRCOG. We work cooperatively with CDOT to geolocate crash data, safety data, then put that together in a combined database. For this particular performance measure, there's actually 5 targets that we're setting. Again, these are federally prescribed, and we're going to go through these quickly, but we're going to go through them. The number of fatalities, the rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, the number of serious injuries, the rate of serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and then a combined measure, the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. This is where it gets a little complicated. Again, this is federally prescribed. It's a 5-year rolling average of 5 individual consecutive points of data, and I will illustrate that to you graphically. Federal guidance here is that, again, this is an annual target. We do this every single year. It's very short-term in nature. Federal guidance is that the target should be realistic and achievable, not aspirational. However, as you'll see in a moment, we do correlate this with our more aspirational Vision Zero work that we've done here at DRCOG and the guidance that you have set for us. For this target and for the bridge target as well, we can either choose to support, because it's not just DRCOG that does this. Every MPO in the country does this, and every state DOT in the country does this. So we have the choice here of either supporting CDOT's target that they have to set, or setting our own targets. And for the safety measure target, we have typically set our own for our region. And then finally, so what happens if we don't achieve our targets, right? There's not a financial penalty on us. There aren't any funding implications. There is potentially some additional scrutiny into our planning process when we undergo our 4-year quadrennial certification of our metropolitan planning organization process with the feds. So let's get into methodology a little bit. And as we do that, first, I just want to be really clear. We're going to talk about numbers and statistics. We're really talking about people's lives. We're talking about people's loved ones. And let's keep that in mind always when we talk about safety. As I said, we correlate this, even though these federal targets are short-term in nature and annual in this case, we do correlate it with our taking action on Regional Vision Zero plan and the targets that we have set through that planning process per your direction. Targets here are based on 0 fatalities by 2040 and 0 serious injuries by 2045. And so we correlate those aspirational goals as we set our annual federal safety targets. And I just said that, so there we go. All right, so I'm going to walk through this first one in a little more detail. The other 4 are going to look just like this. So this is the first one, annual fatalities. This is a trend line that shows actual data through 2023 of annual fatalities, again, within the DRCOG MPO region, and how they have varied over time. Ending with the most current year of observed data, which is 2023. We just got that data actually very recently. 325 people have lost their lives in our region in 2023. And as sad and as awful as that is, it's actually a little bit of an improvement from 2022. Because we're looking at 2025 targets, we have to estimate then for 2024 and 2025, and that's the kind of gray or teal kind of diamonds that you see on the far right. The way that we estimate those is that when we adopted our Taking Action on Regional Vision Zero plan, we made a decision, because trend crash data, as you see, is variable. It goes up and down each year. right? And so when we fixed this to when we adopted our Taking Action on Regional Vision Zero plan, and at that time, that would require an average annual reduction of 13 fatalities by 2040 to meet our zero fatalities target. So even though since then the data has continued to be variable, we have stuck with that sort of philosophy of using that average, and we use that average of reduction of 13 fatalities per year to estimate the remaining targets that we set, or the remaining years to set this target. So that's at the bottom of the screen. We're going to do a little bit of math. We have our 3 years of observed data that we actually know what they were. We estimate again, subtracting 13 by year for 2024 and 2025 to get the rolling 5-year average. These are the 5 years that we use to set these 2025 targets. Are you confused yet? This is set by federal regulation. I'm sorry. This is what it is. Federal regulations set the fact that we have to do it this way, that we use a rolling 5-year average, that we use these 5 years, and that we use of these 5 years, 4 of them are already determined, right? We're looking at, in this case, 2021 through 2024. Those years have already happened. We can't do anything about it. It's only the current year in which we could even attempt to do something about it. So my analogy is that this is like reviewing the restaurant before it even opens, or the first week that it opened. That's not to minimize the importance of this. I don't want to make light of it. I just want to be clear that our hands are frankly a little bit tied in terms of the methodology that we use to do this work. That said, we take these 5 years of these rolling 5-year average, and we take an average of the 5 years that we're required to use to set the target, and that's how we end up with our proposed target of 321 fatalities. So that looks like this. We don't know our baseline yet for 2025. In these federal targets, we're comparing, you sort of set a baseline and you set a target and you kind of compare the two. Well, we obviously don't know our baseline yet, but we can set our 2025 target of 321. And obviously, just, to make the point, we want over time these targets and these numbers to come down, of course. So serious injuries works the same way. I'm not going to go through it in as much detail, but again, we look at the trend line. We use the estimation, in this case, a reduction of 68 serious injuries per year. We use that to estimate the final 2 years. We come up with that rolling 5-year average, and we come up with, in this case, the target of 2,061 serious injuries as our 2025 target. Again, we do this every year, so we'll come back next year with the same conversation. Non-motorized deaths and serious injuries, again, sort of same idea with the trend line. Again, this is a combination of both non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, so we combine those together. We do the 5-year rolling average math, and we come up with that target of 437. So when you put these all together, these are the 5 safety-related targets that we need to adopt, and these are the proposed targets that we're proposing to you to adopt for 2025. Then we look at, as I said, you set a baseline and a target, and you look at, how did we do, right? And so we've been doing this for 6 years now. This is 6 years that it's been a federal requirement. Did reasonably well the first few years, but the last couple of years in particular, we have not met our target. And I'm not going to make any bones about that. We have not met our targets, even though I have said, and you have seen on the trend lines, that 2023 data came down just a little bit from 2022. That's good, right? But we still didn't meet our targets. So let's be honest with ourselves about that. Let this be a renewed call to action for all of us to do more and do better on safety. And it prompts the question, well, what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? So, DRCOG, obviously, we don't, for the most part, construct or operate, build projects, but we have the power of bringing you all together. We have the power of the priorities that we set and we fund through our regional transportation plan, our transportation improvement program, and the work that we collaboratively do together. So there are several things as an agency that we are trying to do about this very important topic. We have talked with you before about the things on this slide. As I've mentioned, we did an update to our Taking Action on Regional Vision Zero plan. We actually submitted for last year and successfully received a small Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. We are exploring applying again this year. We prepared an interactive crash data dashboard, and that's now implemented. That's available. It's a really wonderful sort of data resource for both you all, your staff, and the public to look at these trends in more detail. And we're in the midst of our active transportation plan update. Some ongoing and new work. We continue to host our bi-monthly Regional Vision Zero work group meetings. We have done this for about the last 6 years or so. We use that group to help us develop the Taking Action on Regional Vision Zero plan, and then we continue to meet. It's really staff from your local governments as well as other stakeholders. It's a very important group. We talk about a lot of important issues in that group and work together to find solutions. We have also continued to participate in the Colorado Safe Routes to Schools Advisory Committee. Other ongoing work, we participate and also lead, frankly, multiple local corridor safety studies. Those are really important. There's a lot that have been going on across the region. We are fortunate to have been able to hire, and that person will start soon, a second senior safety planner. This will be the first time that DRCOG has 2 senior planners dedicated to safety and Regional Vision Zero. We're grateful for that opportunity, and we're grateful for the additional things that's going to allow us to do. We are continuing to support all of you with your Safe Streets and Roads for All funded development of local safety action plans, of which there are an increasing number, and that's great. And finally, in our transportation improvement program, in our current transportation improvement program, we have 207 TIP projects at about $435 million that we hope and expect will improve safety. And safety is actually an important criteria that we use in making those project funding allocations in the TIP. Finally, a couple more things. For the last 2 years, we received a grant from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, regarding crash record data improvement. We have been working to stand up a crash data consortium. We are now making that permanent in 2025. And we continue to participate in Colorado's statewide Traffic Records Advisory Committee. So you talked about the STAC earlier. Turns out there's also a STRAC. This group is dedicated, every state has one, dedicated to improvement in data flow and traffic records. It's a really important group. We have been a sort of a advisory member, a non-voting member for a very long period of time in STRAC. We're exploring maybe becoming a voting member given the importance of their work. Okay, so that's safety. I wanted to spend time on it. It's important. The other one that we're going to talk about tonight more briefly is bridge condition. Again, as a reminder, this is sort of that second one, infrastructure condition, but specifically around bridges. This one is also a little bit complicated, federally dictated, but it is a little bit different. There are individual state 2- and 4-year targets that are set for this one. This relates to bridges carrying the national highway system. And I'll show you a map of that in a couple slides. The data comes from the National Bridge Inventory. This is great work that CDOT does. We look at the percent of NHS, so National Highway System bridges, by deck area, so think of the actual deck area of the bridge, looking at good and poor condition. So there's good, fair, and poor. We're looking for this specific measure at good condition and poor condition of these bridge areas. And so these are calculated good and poor condition rating areas. We're looking at the deck, the superstructure, the substructure, and the culvert. The federal guidance here, again, is that targets should be realistic and achievable, not aspirational. Again, we can either support CDOT's target, which we do in this case, or set our own for the region, which we don't typically do. And the reason we don't typically do that is a couple things. Most of these NHS bridges are on the state highway system, so CDOT works on them. They have funding dedicated to work on these bridges. And because our trend lines, so this slide is showing the trend lines, the statewide is in kind of the teal blue, and then DRCOG is in the sort of darker, let's call that blue-greenish. But you can see the trend is very similar between the state, the overall state as a whole, and the DRCOG region. And so we track pretty close to the state, so we support the state target. That proposed target is 38.5%. The existing target is 36%. So we're actually, the state is proposing and we're agreeing to actually improve the target here a little bit. And let me show you that. So it's the NHS bridge deck area rated as good. Remember, there's good, fair, and poor. We're looking at good. The current target, again, is 36% or more. We're proposing to go to 38.5% or more as rated good. The 2024 data from CDOT is that actually almost 41% of bridge deck area is rated good. So we're kind of in line with where we think we are as a state. Again, here's the maps that kind of show the poor bridge condition is on the left, and the fair and the good bridge condition is on the right. So this just gives you a sense of kind of what we're talking about and where these are. I will note that there have been some major projects, both in recent years and in upcoming years, on several of these key corridors. Think of a project like Central 70, think of some other major projects that, you know, kind of address, either specifically address bridge condition or as part of their projects address bridge condition. So after all that, our recommended motion is to move to adopt a resolution adopting the 2025 safety targets and revised four-year bridge condition targets for the Metropolitan Planning Organization area as part of federal performance-based planning and programming requirements. I will end by sharing with you that the Regional Transportation Committee unanimously advised this motion. Our Transportation Advisory Committee did not quite unanimously recommend this. There was one dissenting vote. That dissenting vote dealt with the safety issue, and it dealt with sort of that trend line that we were using to set that 13, an average of 13 fatality reduction per year. We did talk through that issue, and again, the committee overwhelmingly, but not unanimously, voted to approve the targets as recommended. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or discussion? Director Karen.
Thank you for the presentation. I was curious to know if we have information on the fatalities predominantly being or solely being on the state and federal highways, so it's like high-speed accidents, or if they are also including like state roads and local road accidents.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The short answer is yes, I think we do. We do have a sense of obviously where the crash locations, let me try that again. We know where the crashes occur, we know the crash locations, and based on the form that's filled out, which is called the Department of Revenue Form 3447, you know, we get a sense of what the cause of the particular crash or the particular situation was. We are dependent on kind of what's entered in the form. It is very complex. There are multiple causes for multiple types of crashes in multiple areas, but we do have a general sense, yes.
Do we have any idea like how much of that is happening on like the highway at high rates of speed? And so that, I guess my point is, it's hard to lower these numbers if we don't have a comprehension of what the causes are.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's something simple, like there were changes years ago where we stopped having so many young drivers be able to be in a car together, for example, right? So reduce distractions, and it was effective. We saw lower teen deaths. So I'm just curious to know if we're seeing trends like that, if there are things that we need to work on as legislators to help to reduce this so that we don't even have this level of death happening in our state.
Yeah, I don't know that it would be fair for me to say, well, it's these one or two things. It's everything. It's all of the above. It's speeding, to be sure. It's distracted driving. It's cell phone use. We have the new state cell phone law, so we'll see what that does. It's seatbelt use. It's, frankly, it's marijuana. It's alcohol. It's everything, right? So I don't know that I could say, well, it's one thing or two things above the others. It's, visibility at night. It's roadway design. It's a lot of things. So I don't know that I could say it's one or two things, but it is all of those things. And we do look for, either on particular roadways or in particular areas, can we see a trend in terms of cause, within a particular location or a particular area.
Director Spear.
Thank you, and thanks so much for the presentation. I just had a question more out of curiosity than anything else. With so many bridges, I mean, I know relatively there's not that many in poor condition across the region, but there are a lot of dots. How do they get prioritized for funding for repairs?
Yeah, I'm going to lean on my doppelganger, Jacob Kirshner with CDOT is here. Jacob, can I ask you to come up and help answer that question, sir?
Yes, good evening. My name's Jacob Kirshner. I'm the Performance Program Manager at CDOT. How we prioritize that is we focus on life cycle planning. And so what that is we focus on bridges in good and fair condition. The reason being, once a bridge gets to poor condition, that's when it's going to be costly repairs. So we do focus on prioritizing bridges in good and fair condition. Once they drop to poor, we really utilize the Colorado Bridge Enterprise, and they help us prioritize bridges to fund and make decisions on which ones we should prioritize.
Thank you. Yes, Director Sherazai, Director Flynn, and Director Binkley is here. Oh.
Just to build on that point, there's not a metric around fare though. So would there not be some commitment to ensuring that things sort of get maintained so that they don't move to that poor status?
Yeah, so although there's not a metric for fare, we do track that, and so it's still there. And so with 37% of these statewide bridges being in good condition, 3.5% are in poor. Whatever that middle number is, quick math off the top of my head, 40% is where we're at for the fair condition bridges. And so we focus on prioritizing bridges that, once again, in fair condition. That way they don't drop down to where they're in poor. And so that's some of our preventative maintenance strategies that we have for bridge, focusing on bridges that are scour critical and Darius, thank you.
Director Packboss. If I could, thank you, Jacob. So under the federal regulations 23 CFR 490, it does not require us to report on fare, but we do track that. And as Jacob's mentioned, we're taking a look at those preventative measures through our on-system bridge program in order to make sure that the bridges don't fall into it, looking at leaking expansion joints, looking at scour critical bridges, looking at bridge strikes that can sometimes happen with bridges that are functionally obsolete. And when they go into that poor condition, then the Bridge and Tunnel Enterprise is able to utilize funds in order to make some of those more costly repairs or replacements of those bridges, which its powers has recently expanded to take a look at some other areas as well in order to help make sure that we have those bridges. Like you said, there's a lot of dots on that map, but the dots, we are actually doing fairly well in comparison to a lot of our peer states in taking care of our bridges. And a lot of those bridges that you see on there, they may be prioritized in future projects, such as the 3 or 4 on Interstate 270, which are being taken care of right now through some projects that are in the DRCOG Regional Transportation Plan and CDOT's 10-year plan as well. Director Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to bog down with any detail now because I know you probably won't have it, but I was a little surprised to see one of the bridges in poor condition looks to be the 285 Hamden Bridge over Federal Boulevard, State Highway 88. That was just reconstructed, a whole new bridge built there in 2010. How is that in a poor condition in 2010? And what I'm asking is, could you look into that, Jacob, number 2, and send the answer to Jacob number 1, who could then get it to me. I covered that as a journalist when that project was done. That was the 285 all the way out to Kipling, and 3 bridges were reconstructed and some concrete works, I think, did it. I'd like to know how that ended up in a poor condition after just 50.
Yeah, and Director Flynn, I think I can give you a partial answer. Let me come back to here. So other Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we talk about a bridge being in good or fair or poor condition, again, we're looking at these 4 areas, and my understanding is if even one of them rates poor, then it's kind of marked as poor, even though the bridge itself may be okay. So it could be the culvert, it could be something about, doesn't mean the bridge itself is in poor condition, but there's that piece of it. So we'll look into that.
Good. Other questions? Yes, Director Vittum.
So I'd just like to ask you about so in the region exit. Oh, about a year ago, the top deck of that overpass was designed in that condition. Closed down, repaired it, closed, repaired it. About 7 to 8 months past it identical but for the so I'm certainly not a civil intellect. Included that either poor material or workmanship, both. Now, I see this repeat, not the DRCOG. Roads are repaired very short period. Enlighten me.
Director Pakbas, could I lean on you for that?
Thank you, Director Vidum. I don't know on the specific structure that you're taking a look at, but all of the bridge structures are inspected on a biannual basis. So every other year, we're able to inspect all the bridges in the state in order to take a look. It sounds like the issue of taking a look at is the deck itself, which is one of those structures that is rated poor. If any of those would go, they're on a rating scale between 0 and 9, with 0 being the worst and 9 being the best. Now, even if the structure may not have a great driving surface, but the deck itself below that is still in good condition, it may get a higher rating, so it may be a fair structure. But if there are, you mentioned exit 306, I think maybe, Jacob, we could add that to a list to provide more information back to the board at a later time when we can take a look at that specific structure you mentioned.
Other questions? If not, let's thank our presenters. Yes. So, there is a motion on the screen, I believe. Eyes in the back of my head. Yes, Director Flynn, and then Director.
I will move to adopt a resolution adopting 2025 safety targets and revised for bridge targets for the Metropolitan Planning Organization area as part of the federal performance-based planning and program requirements.
Director Starker?
I would second the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. Thank you very much, Jacob. The next item up for us to possibly take action on is a discussion of state legislative issues. Our Director of Legislative Affairs, Rich Morrow, will introduce this. And I noticed that we do have our lobbyist, Ed and Jen here. So Ed Bowditch and Jen Castle. Rich, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. So I know we're a few minutes over time, so I would try to be efficient in explaining these bills, and hopefully I can move this along good. We've got 4 new bills. No, wait, this one, okay, so the first one is we've got in your packet the running list that we keep of the bills you've taken positions on previously. So it's just the 6 bills that the board acted on last month, 2 of which 1044 and 1046 have already been postponed indefinitely. So, whoops, I touched something wrong. What did I hit? But unless there's any questions about any of these specific bills, we can move into the new bills. Yeah, Doug.
Rich, let me just mention real quick, because it's a bill we've taken an amendment position on. It's the Mo Choice Bill.
Yeah.
Senate Bill 30. We've had communications with the sponsors on that one, and we're getting most of our concerns addressed in the bill. But we're still working on it. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. So we appreciate this bill sponsors working with us.
I'm still. Go to the next. Yeah, here we go. All right. I'm new at this, I guess. All right, so we have 4 new bills for your consideration. I'm going to quickly discuss the aging bills, and then I think Doug's going to take the transportation bill and the housing. bill. So, House Bill 1156 actually in some ways is similar to, I think it was Senate Bill 13 that the board supported last month, which is a bill, the 13 was an extension of the senior housing tax credit that was adopted by the legislature for 2 years last year, and that bill extends it for another 2 years. Also last year, there was a bill, I think it was Senate Bill 111, that created a statute to essentially establish portability for the senior property tax exemption. And this bill comes back and would make that statutory portability permanent. And that's basically what that does. So actually, Mr. Chair, I didn't, and Doug, I didn't say, are we going to just take them one at a time and then vote? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's basically my explanation. See if there's any questions or a motion.
Questions?
And the staff's recommending support.
Staff is recommending support. And Ed or Jen, do you have anything else to add?
Good evening, members. The only thing I would say is with any tax credits, it's going to be tough because of the budget situation. This one, the impact is a few years out, but I'm guessing it will still have a tough time.
Thank you. Director Levy.
Yeah, thank you. This is one that I think we need to be very careful about. As I think Rich mentioned in his introduction, we did vote to support the income tax credit for certain seniors, which is, you know, that's somewhat means tested, and so we're giving income tax relief to lower income seniors that will help them afford their homes. This is not means tested at all. It is a reduction in the valuation of property, and so it applies across the board. I would not support a position in support of this bill because of that. In addition, you know, as the introduction indicates, it was originally passed for a 2-year period. And that was a 2-year period when there's lots of play in the legislature over property taxes. What are we going to do? Let's do this for 2 years while we work something else out. Commissioner Zenzinger was there, created the property tax task force, et cetera. Then there's the grand bargain that passed. This seems to me to be kind of coming along on top of that, really out of order. The property tax task force didn't recommend it. That bill that passed in the special session was kind of supposed to fix everything. My concern about this is that the state is giving money back, giving away money that is not means tested. That's money that's going to people that don't need it. So, and, you know, yes, there are some seniors that do need it. We have the homestead exemption. Hopefully the income tax reduction or credit will pass. So I think that we need to be a little more discerning in how we provide property tax relief and try to do it in a way that targets that for lower income people.
Thank you. Director Mulvey.
I actually like this bill because it provides municipalities with the ability to get paid back at a certain point for reimbursement for increased valuation. And we see increased valuation in the existing homes in our region and in my municipality, where we have people who are aging in place and they cannot afford the tax increase, nor can they sell their home at the price at which it was valued, because they haven't done improvements like their neighbor who sold it down the street did, because the valuation is based on the relative value of those within 5 or so houses of you. So this old couple who couldn't afford to do those renovations can't sell their house at the new valuation rate, and they can't do the appeal either. So this is a solution for those aging in place populations, which is approximately 30% of my municipality. So I'm in favor.
Thank you. Any other comments? I will remind the body that we do need a standard of 2/3 to take a position on bills. Many of us...
Those present and voting.
Present and voting, yes. And many of us have different, from all of our different jurisdictions, we all have different policies. Arapahoe County, for instance, unless we've taken a position, the 5 county commissioners have taken a position on a bill, then I have to abstain. So I just want you to know that that's why I'm going to ask right now. For those on House Bill 1156, I'd like to see a show of hands of those abstaining. And if you're online, please raise your hand online as well and keep it up until I tell you you may lower it. Next, we'll take a vote of those in favor of supporting House Bill 1156.
Excuse me, Chair, if I may, is there going to be an opportunity to vote to amend, not to, okay, because I agree with Dr. Levy.
The recommendation of staff is to support, so we'll vote on that. If it fails, then you may raise a motion to amend. Not yet. Vote of those who support. We need the motion first. Okay. I'm sorry, I took this out of order. First bill, is there a motion to support? As the recommendation of staff was, I guess, is there a motion? Director Mulvey.
I move to support House Bill 25.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. We have multiple seconds. So there's a motion and a second to support. We have the abstentions. We took that ahead of time. All right. Now, for those that support the motion to support, please raise your hand. And online, if you support, please raise your hand as well. Including online. Okay, that motion to support passes. I guess, do I need to ask if anyone opposes the motion to support so they're on the record? Sure. Okay, all those who oppose the motion to support. And online, if you oppose the motion to support, was for in opposition of the motion to support. All right, Rich, do you want to move on to 1162?
Yes. So the next bill, 1162, deals with, as it says, eligibility redetermination for Medicaid members. As I understand it, it relates to the procedures and processes and requirements that healthcare policy and financing goes through for those individuals who had been on Medicaid. And of course, there's been particular situation in recent years with people who got on Medicaid during the pandemic, but once the emergency was declared over, a lot of those folks got thrown off of Medicaid and now are trying to get back on. And those redeterminations have a lot of obstacles and so forth. And even, I don't know, Jayla can confirm a lot of her staff looked at this bill because they get a lot of phone calls and try to provide assistance to people, and said that this bill could really help streamline the process. I think HICPUF may still have to get federal approval for making the changes to this, but it does seem like a good idea. And if it matters at all, the sponsor is Representative Lisa Foray, who used to be on this board. So with that, the staff is recommending a support position.
All right, we have a support position recommended. Discussion. Anybody comments? Yes, Director Van Winkle.
Oh, thank you. Just a question. So right now, Medicaid, or no, HICPUF checks people's income once a year to verify that they're still eligible for Medicaid. This aims to change it to every 3 years. So even if someone's income raises above that in year 1 or 2, they still are on Medicaid for the 3rd year? Correctly?
Ed? I think so. Can you give some?
Yes, thank you. And this was amended pretty heavily just yesterday. And what the direction of the bill is trying to go is seek federal authorization for people who are on Medicaid whose income consists solely of Social Security. They wouldn't have to be redetermined every year. So it's now really limited to just people whose income, who are on Medicaid, whose income consists of Social Security, and they'll need federal authorization to do that. But the bill has been shifted slightly to that direction.
Director Zenzinger.
Thank you very much. Our human services staff have analyzed the bill, and they've determined for Jefferson County, we've already come out in a support position because we see this as saving the county tremendous amount of money. And then also from a user perspective, Colorado right now is one of the worst states in the entire nation for our redetermination rates. And so they see this as being a really significant improvement, particularly when you talk about this is the group of people that pretty much always will remain to be qualified, and it is a lot of extra work to try and go through the process of redetermining them on an annual basis because they're retired, their income's not changing. So we've taken a support position because we think that this is going to be an enormous time saver as well as a saver of resources for our county.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Is there a motion? Director Levy.
Yeah, thank you. I will move that DRCOG support House Bill 1156.
We have a motion to support and?
Second.
I'm sorry?
1160. This is 1162. Yeah.
Sorry, I had another bill open. Yeah. 1152.
1162.
Yeah.
And with that correction, we have a second from Director Mullica. Any further discussion? I'm going to ask for abstentions first. Those who are abstaining, please raise your hand. Online? 7 abstentions. All those who are in favor of support of the motion to support, please raise your hand. 21. Online? 1? Yes. All right. Those that are opposed, please raise your hands. The motion to support carries. Rich, you want to go ahead and proceed with Senate Bill 25-161?
You bet, and that's a bill that I'm sure a lot of folks here have heard about and maybe even been involved in the drafting of it. It was introduced, I think, the day before we were finalizing the board packet. So, but Doug, I think you wanted to take that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rich, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. Listen, first of all on this, but yeah, this is a long-awaited bill. I do want to thank the sponsors for the level of public stakeholder engagement that they had associated with this bill over the summer months. We had quite a few meetings. I mean, I think they refer to it as Transit Tuesdays. The engagement they had online associated with this bill. You know, there was a draft of this bill that was going around before it was introduced, and there was some stuff in there that was related to DRCOG that we really had some heartache about, most notably associated with, you know, some manipulation, I say, that's my word, of our TIP process and our TIP criteria. And we made it clear to the sponsors, and they were receptive to this, that our process, our TIP process, is a federal process, and the criteria that we use, certainly the state has input into that process, but ultimately it is you all in this room that makes a determination on the criteria that we use. And we asked them respectfully to take that part out of the bill, and they did. So we're really appreciative of that. Now, our comments, we didn't look into the hard stuff related to RTD, the operational procedural stuff that RTD has to do within the bill. They can address that themselves. But we did have a few comments that I would like to share with you all today. Staff is recommending an amend position on this bill. So first of all, the bill directs the Transportation Commission to develop and publish best practices and technical assistance materials concerning the creation of RTDs to increase funding for transit and provide additional transit services within the state. We believe, you know, that's great that the Transportation Commission would do that. You know, we felt just simply because ultimately it is something that you all should have a voice in. We have a lot of transportation needs within this state, and we thought it would be short-sighted if we didn't at least explore other modes and other types of transportation projects as part of that research. So that is not, that's not a hill we're going to die on this thing, but I think it was a comment that we wanted to share with the bill sponsors and see if they're receptive to looking at a kind of a more comprehensive, broader view of what our regional transportation authorities could do. There's a requirement in the bill that RTD, working in partnership with DRCOG's Way to Go partnership, which is our transportation management partnership, to conduct outreach on the EcoPass sales. We recommend as part of that they, in order to, what we say, spur increased ridership by EcoPass holders, DRCOG staff recommends RTD promote and bundle the optional purchase of guaranteed ride home services. So just so you all know, DRCOG provides that function now. We administer the guaranteed ride home program for EcoPass recipients. They have, it's an optional thing, but they actually, at the time that they get their EcoPass or sign up for it, it used to be back in the day that they also signed up for the guaranteed ride home, which is $3, right? $3 a year, Steve, per recipient. And, but they don't do that anymore. They do market the guaranteed ride home, but they have to go through a separate process to do that, and they're less likely to do it as a result of that. We just think it's a really tremendous safeguard for folks in the case of emergency that they can get taxi ride or Uber to get back home or wherever they need to go. So we just encourage that, and we're going to share that with the bill sponsors if you allow us. And lastly, it's related. So the bill does acknowledge says that there would be two non-voting ex officio directors that serve on the RTD board. One would be the CDOT director or their alternate, and the other would be an appointment of DRCOG. This is gonna sound selfish, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So we believe that, for consistency purposes, we thought it made sense that the DRCOG rep should also be at staff level, be the executive director or their designee. Also is consistent with what RTD's membership is on our board. We have, as you know, Director Packbos is here, as well as, Director Bill Soroy from RTD is the executive, is the CEO's representative on our board from RTD. We thought that was important. And also, be honest with you, I just think it would be very awkward to have an elected official that is non-voting on an elected board, directly elected board. The dynamics of that, I think, would just be really strange. So, and the other thing is, I don't know how the heck we'd ever decide on who we would send. So that was all that played into it. So I just wanted to share that with you all and get your reaction.
Director Zenzinger.
So I have a question of staff and the director. Part of the bill requires that RTD notify DRCOG and the Department of Local Affairs of any known infrastructure gaps that exist within specific areas of a transit-oriented community within RTD's service territory. Are we able to do that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I wish Ron was here tonight to answer that. We've had, in the original draft, it was kind of the reverse. It was actually suggesting that local governments would provide information to DOLA and RTD about that. So it seemed a little odd, and we'd be happy to address that with the bill sponsors, get some clarification.
Any other questions or concerns? Oh, Director Levy, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Boulder County overall, we think it's a good bill, and we're really happy with it. There's a couple of things that we're looking for in amendments, and I don't know if this resonates with anybody else here that would also want DRCOG to get behind this. The RTD has sub-regional service councils, and they were, in my opinion, originally envisioned to actually have a fair amount of funding and opportunity to provide more local service and set up a possibility that RTD would really focus more on regional things so that local areas could really address their needs. It hasn't really worked out that way. And what we would like an amendment to this bill to require some form of collaboration with the sub-regional service councils, just put in here. And then there's in Section 9 of the bill requires an accountability committee and a report on that, and that report would include an assessment of the existing sub-regional service council structure and just how that's been functioning.
Chairman, if I may, just to address that, thank you for that, Director Levy. For those that may be new to the board, DRCOG back in 2020, we facilitated the Regional Accountability Committee that was established by the legislature. Director Duran Mullica served on that, as well as others. And one of the recommendations that came out of that accountability committee was exactly what Director Levy was referring to, the formation or the creation of sub-regional councils. And I think as it was proposed was those service councils would have the power of recommending local service changes as part of their duty. And that never materialized as the way that it was implemented by RTD. Not good or bad, it just wasn't implemented that way. And I think what Director Levy is suggesting, would they give them more of a role in that process? And that's something staff would be amenable to.
Other questions, comments, or amendments that you would like to see if in this? Director Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I look over this bill, I have a little page. I was looking over some of the summary of this. I really don't see how this increases the ability to have transit in communities like mine, or increases the safety of the riders and the operators. I see this as just going after RTD. RTD is not the only transit authority in this state. there's probably some good aspects of the bills that probably should apply to all transit authorities, but it's all going after RTD. So I'm not very comfortable supporting this, and I know there's a recommendation of amend, but I just don't see how this really increases our ridership and safety right now.
Thank you, Director. Director Zenzinger?
Thank you. I would just like to agree with Commissioner Levy's comments. I think that it's important in that accountability section that we mention the sub-councils, but then also I have a lot of questions about that accountability section because it is not very well spelled out. Who is appointing those members and where are they coming from? Is it the governor that is appointing them, or is it the RTD that is appointing them, or is it CETA? I mean, I don't know. It's very elusive, that area. But then also, and this will be my last comment, I did have a conversation with the current RTD board chair, Chris Nicholson. He is offering an amendment that he is proposing to the bill sponsors. What this bill amendment would do is it would increase to add a regional council to RTD, and that regional council would be composed of members very similar to DRCOG that would allow it to serve as an advisory, an elevated advisory component to RTD in order to increase that regional collaboration. And so this is an amendment idea that he has pitched to the bill sponsors. I think that they are amenable to it. So I just wanted to offer up that I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for DRCOG members if that amendment gets added to the bill. Obviously, because it's an amendment, I don't have anything material other than, you know, I could kind of go over what the amendment is purporting to do. But I just wanted to raise that or elevate that to maybe encourage an amend position, because if this amendment gets added, it's going to put DRCOG members and the region in a much more strong position in order to influence the direction of that new regional council that is being proposed. And I wish the RTD member was here today in order to ask him about it, but just wanted to offer that up.
Thank you very much. Director Dyack.
Thank you. Yeah, again, to kind of piggyback on Director Levy, Executive Director Rex, in 2020, I think I was chair, we had the RTD Accountability Report. In having discussions with DRCOG alumni, former Director Lindstedt, who is on this bill, it felt like they were trying to recreate the magic that we did in the dual model approach. And I think what RTD looked at is that DRCOG was a grant writing entity, and they try to create a grant pool, and the grant pool is minuscule compared to, I think what we were trying to articulate is that the revenue you get from a Parker or a Douglas County or a Boulder is the revenue that the Subregional Service Council should be talking about and should be have a voice so we can articulate where the needs are and we can direct where the money should go to take care of our citizens. You know, I think with their approach, talking to Executive Director Johnson, she came to Parker, try to articulate that it wasn't connecting. I think their view, they look at it through travel sheds. I think in Douglas County, we're all cut up in 3 or 4 travel sheds, so it's not, we don't have the ability to discuss how to spend money or how to do any of this where we do in the dual model approach here at DRCOG. So, you know, to me, it's about educating them as to what we're trying to do. We want greater say-so, greater control of the monies that we give DRCOG or RTD. At Parker, we're more than happy to engage in discussion on what would it take to take care of the regional network. It's just that sub-regional money. Tell us how much is at play and how much we can utilize so we can take care of our citizens, because they are an entity that serves our citizens as well. So I think I'm supportive of what Director Levy's indicating. I think that's sort of what you're trying to get at. But I think we all want greater say-so to RTD because our citizens give them money. They work within our confines, and it seems like everybody has needs. And let's just get realistic about if we give money, what kind of services are we getting, and we want to say so.
Director Van Winkle, then Director Levy.
Thank you. And it does seem, when reading the bill, like it started out as one thing, but it's morphed into 26 pages of very different, which is really around the Transportation Vision 2035 goals. It does have that accountability committee, but that accountability committee is housed only within the Carl Energy Office. And as it's laid out in the bill, it would be 9 Democrats and 2 Republicans right now. So it's, it doesn't seem to be very fairly built, that accountability committee, almost entirely based on the greenhouse emissions and goals of 2035.
Director Levy?
Yeah, thanks. I did want to just say as a follow-up to Commissioner Zenzinger's dialogue around RTD Director Nicholson, that we had a little bit of a dialogue about it, and I suggested that somehow maybe the sub-regional council or forums could play that role. He responded with some logistical issues, but I think we, and Director Dyack was acknowledging this, I think what we're looking for is more of a role for regional input here and just better coordination and responsive-ness to our own regional internal travel needs that we see. So I think, some a conceptual, we're not going to propose amendments, but as we discuss what does that amend position mean, it could mean anything, that's what we're really looking for.
Thank you very much. Just as a reminder, we have options to do nothing, to not take a position. I just want to make sure that that's clear as well. We can amend, support, or oppose. So I just wanted to, my notes on this bill say that one of the relevant changes includes authorizing RTD to enter into service partnership agreements with local governments to expand services, but only within RTD's current service territory. So it doesn't mean expanding outside, but you could, the way I was told the bill, entering into some kind of partnership agreement with local governments, RTD. I don't know if that changes anything. So is there a motion? Commissioner, I'm sorry, Director here. Director Zenzinger.
Yes, I move to take an official amend position.
Is there a second? Director Levy is the second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all abstaining, please raise your hand. Thank you for your hands. All in favor of the motion to amend, please raise your hand. And online. All opposed to the motion to amend, please raise your hand. Thank you. The motion to amend passes. And we have last bill, last one.
House Bill 1198. I think, Doug, you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm gonna just touch on this one real quick. Regional. So House Bill 1198, Regional Planning Roundtable, Commission. And I'll be honest, I mean, despite the stated purpose of this bill, I think we really struggled internally to kind of figure out exactly what the role and what it was planning to do or trying to do. But just for your edification, what the bill says, that this commission, it would be establishment of a 15-member commission assisting local governments in complying with statutory housing, land use, other planning requirements, assist local governments in assessing state, local resources and technical assistance for complying with housing, land use, and planning requirements, cooperation with local governments creating and managing and revising regions. So we have a few comments associated with the actual content of the bill. So first of all, so the 15-member commission, it does include a seat for regional councils. It does not specify what regional council that is, but that was at least good to see. I do appreciate what they were trying to accomplish with this bill and providing maybe some direction and help with local governments in getting there. We still remain a bit confused about some of the language that's used in the bill. It seems to be just some overreaching language without a whole lot of definition, like unified planning framework, common planning framework, that is included in the declarations of the bill, and then all of a sudden they introduce a new concept of integrated framework, and we just don't know what that stuff means, right? So we want at least at minimum to get some clarification on that. Something that also gave us pause in the bill is this language, this comment related to create, manage, and revise regions as necessary. It also seemed vague. And it does talk about cooperation with local governments, which we appreciate, but it does not make reference to any regional agencies that are already established. And there's just some concern about, you know, any kind of what the appropriateness is of creating regions that may overlap and all that kind of good stuff. I think based on my understanding of last session, there was some discussion about you know, regions around the state that don't have an official regional body like DRCOG does, or the MPOs, there's 5 MPOs in the state, that this would be, there was conversation about the creation or allowing communities to get together to form a region. I would suggest to you that there is a council of governments in every part of this state, that maybe they utilize those to do the work that they're trying to do, and we'll forward that comment if you agree. Last but not least is we also remain a little bit concerned because the limited funding that we have came out of bills last year related to complying with new state law, that this you know, this commission could ultimately be tapped for the purposes of implementing this commission, which the bill does state. So that's, I mean, it's more of a minor issue for us, but it's one that we wanted to raise because we know that DOLA is getting just, you know, overrun with requests, or expecting, right, those requests to come from local government for assistance. And this is just another way of, you know, kind of reducing the total pot.
Director Levy?
I really appreciate your observations, Executive Director Rex. I have a question, though. So this is an advisory committee that is supposed to help. So the legislature passed all these laws and said, all of you local governments have to do all this stuff, and DOLA's going to do all this planning and implementation and going to do all this stuff. And now we're going to have an advisory committee that is actually going to try to figure it out because DOLA doesn't know how to do it or something. I'm not really sure about that. But my question actually is, the part about the commission may consider assisting in the establishment of an integrated framework for planning, which framework shall consider the following topics, and then they're listed, and you called this out. It almost sounds like this appointed body might be able to propose overarching land use regulations of some sort?
Yes. That definitely needs clarification.
Okay, so this is rather scary.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Director Nurmela, sorry.
I share similar concerns regarding just the repetitiveness of having a regional planning entity. I thought we were sitting here. And most of the growth is happening in areas that have a COG in the state. So and the types of things that are being addressed by this group theoretically are those that are in, mostly experienced by areas of growth. I think that the language they're using is not informed by planners, and that's why we're struggling to understand what they're talking about. And I look at the composition, the proposed composition of this appointed board, and there's nothing to say that there's a planner on it. It's great that they have a diversity of folks representing like natural resources and transportation, but and this just keeps going with the state, the planners are not involved in making planning, in providing planning direction, and not to say that that should be done by the state, but if you're going to be providing planning direction, please use a planner. So I personally would suggest we oppose this. So.
Is that a motion?
Sure, yes.
Yes, yes.
Motion?
Second.
Director Zenzinger. Yes, I'm hearing the motion.
So I also wanted to speak to it because like on its surface, it doesn't seem like it's a bad idea if it's just a think tank, but it's really hard to understand how this would be helpful. So for example, how would local governments use this commission? Will the commission have the ability to influence funding opportunities? And if so, how can we be sure that they are fair? One of their charges of this roundtable would be to create a framework for local planning guidelines, which seems unnecessary and overreaching since most of us already have a planning framework in our communities. And then I also believe that this commission could help facilitate regional planning roundtable discussions, which would be good, but this may also be an effort, and dovetailing off of Commissioner Levy's comments, I believe that more specifically, this is an effort to inform the legislature or the governor on new top-down unfunded mandates, which would not be good. So I also would second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to oppose. I'm sorry?
One thing I would say, I think it's clearly taken another step against home rule. I think that's really their way of overarching, coming down and telling us once again what we cannot do within our local communities.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? First of all who must abstain. We had 7 abstentions. All who are in favor of the motion to oppose, please raise your hand and keep them up. Also online, please raise your hand if you are in favor of the motion to oppose. And online? Pass. Well, just for the record, all who are opposed to the motion to oppose, please raise your hand.
Double negative.
Okay, that motion does carry. The motion to oppose does carry. And that was our last bill of the evening.
Thank you all.
And who are doing yeoman's duty down at the Capitol, thank you for all that you do for us down there. All right. We have one informational briefing this morning. This morning, there we go. Almost morning. This is the Parker Road, Colorado State Highway 83 multimodal corridor study. In the interest of time, I think our presenters know that we would appreciate them, what is it that, chop chop. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, very briefly, we did want to bring this to you. This is an important corridor in the region, as most of you know. It's an important corridor within our 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. It's part of our bus rapid transit network as designated in the Regional Transportation Plan. It's one of the corridors we'll be looking at as part of our USDOT Build America Bureau grant. A very thorough and comprehensive multimodal corridor study is wrapping up in this corridor. We think it's important, so we wanted to share with you the study and the draft recommendations. And to help us do that, I'm going to introduce Jim Kotzer, the Transportation Division Manager for Arapahoe County.
Thank you, Jacob, and in honor of the chair, good morning. Good evening. I'm joined by Stacy Shore from DEA, who's the project manager on the project. So I'll make this brief. So I guess I should advance the slide. We're talking about the study along Parker Road, which starts at Hamden and it goes up to Mississippi. As you drive this corridor, you'll go through parts of Aurora, through Denver, unincorporated Arapahoe County, and this is all along a state highway. So the funding partners include federal money, Arapahoe County, and Aurora. So the transportation improvements that were identified needed to address safety, multimodal connectivity, and multimodal travel experience. As this road has grown up with development to the south of it and all along it, it's become a barrier for multimodal activity, and also has issues with traffic safety and multimodal safety. The projects or the recommendations that are pushed forward needed to maintain or improve vehicular operations. That wasn't the main focus of the improvements, but we didn't want them to hinder operations. They needed to serve mobility in a regional aspect and also provide local access for all modes. And then we wanted to include public input. Generally, our public input included 2 meetings. One was a virtual meeting. The other one was held at the Grizzly Stampede, and we had great participation, and here's a picture of that. We also had 2 community focus groups, and the community in this area was very engaged in the process, and they had some great ideas that we incorporated in the plan. And then we also had great participation with the local governments along this stretch. So Aurora was part of that, City and County in Denver. DRCOG joined us, RTD, and others. We had a policy advisory committee. We had 4 meetings. We're hoping that to engage policy, people that can influence policy could help us with projects in the future. And then we also had a technical advisory committee. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy.
Thanks. So our alternatives evaluation process was a tiered process that got more detailed as it progressed. We started with 16 categories of high-level improvement concepts, then got to 50 improvement options that were at location-specific, and then we ended up with 36 options recommended. So bus rapid transit, this corridor is part of a BRT corridor that's been identified by multiple agencies. It's not just, this is the one piece of the full future BRT corridor that includes all the way from downtown Denver to the 9 Mile station. And so after level 1 screening, this study, the project team moved BRT to a recommendation without further evaluation, knowing that there could be further details for the BRT done with the future study. However, for this study, we did utilize not precluding BRT as an evaluation criteria for our projects, as well as the implementation plan will discuss how projects will support and build towards BRT along the corridor. So then once we got those recommendations, we developed projects. So we took those options and combined them into 16 potential projects along the corridor. Then those projects were assigned an overall priority, based on the purpose and need and goals that Jim had talked about, as well as timing and effectiveness, which include ease of implementation, traffic operation impacts, and cost. Then we determined separately a potential time frame for construction and implementation, looking again at ease of implementation and cost for that, and looked at short, mid, and long term. Short term is less than 5 years, midterm is 5 to 10, and long term is over 10 years. So we did not assign specific sources of funding for the different projects in our implementation plan. Grants and programs can change. Both go away as well as new opportunities arise. And therefore, we utilize what you see in bold on the left as far as types and categories that we identified with each project. So wanted to go through the projects as at the levels of priority. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail since it's late, but starting with the higher priority projects, this is an example. We have 4 new controlled pedestrian crossings recommended along the corridor, and this is the first one that we show. These were recommended based on distance between existing signals. Also looked at land use across Parker. So Parker Road is a barrier, and so looking at the land use on one side to the other and trying to make those connections, as well as observations and input and data on where people are now crossing Parker Road that are not at controlled locations. So at Florida, this shows an example of our most common recommendation, which are intersection corner modifications. So Parker Road was designed very car-centric, and it is a state highway, and therefore a lot of the intersections include acceleration lanes, and so there's the free rights. And it's also on an angle, and so a lot of these free rights have become very high speed. And so we looked at tightening up and removing those free rights so that the right turn lanes are still there, but they will have to yield instead of going very fast around the corner. And this is meant to slow the speed of those turning vehicles, increase the visibility of pedestrians and bicyclists crossing at the intersection, and it also shortens the crossing itself. Here you can see we also talk about further analysis and design within the current contract. We do have remaining funds in the contract, and therefore we're using some of the remaining funds for 4 projects where we're going to be doing more analysis and concept layouts to provide more information for the agencies to move forward. This is another one of the controlled pedestrian crossing recommendations. This is also moving forward with further concept design, and a lot of that is based on the development of the new Arapahoe County San Lily Park on the west side of Parker Road that will not have parking, and there are apartments on the other side of Parker Road. So this is an example of where there may not be people crossing right now. However, looking at the future land uses, we want to make sure that there are opportunities. Another controlled crossing at Jewel Circle and Jewel Avenue. And then Havana through Yale is an example of another common recommendation that we had for raised median on Parker Road. So we have several locations where we recommend more raised median. And at Dartmouth and Cornell to Peoria improvements, this is an area that includes intersection corner modifications, raised median, as well as a new controlled pedestrian crossing. This is a location where we observed a lot of people crossing. There's a history of crashes involving pedestrians in this area, and so looking at that controlled crossing as well as a median. So then going through our medium priority projects, I'm not going to spend as much time on these, but we have a shared use path, Mississippi to Peoria, looking at it being detached and including signing and striping at the driveways to make this really a great shared use path. But also wanted to note that with the agency coordination that we had throughout the project, we were able to identify future next steps like a maintenance IGA that would be needed before construction of such a shared use path. We also had transit improvements. These would move towards that future BRT implementation, including getting the 83L on Parker Road the entire way, as well as transit signal priority improvements. And at Mississippi, we would be looking at right turn signal for the right turn there on westbound for that, signalizing that right turn to help with the pedestrian crossing. And we also included recommendations for connections across Parker Road, including here, Dartmouth and Cornell bike lanes that have new bike lanes that provide a connection across Parker between two existing trails. At Peoria, we would be looking at corner modifications to help with the pedestrian crossings there near the 9 Mile station. And then this is a list of our less priority projects. We don't want to say they are low priority, but just lesser priority than others. And really, these 5 are lesser priority because they generally are the higher costs of the options and also had some lower multimodal benefits. The last one on there, we did look at corridor EV charging opportunities that could be coordinated with property owners along the corridor. So next steps. We are really pulling this together as an implementation plan as a guide for moving forward with project funding and implementation. And so we will be pulling together the implementation plan in a report that can be shared and utilized by the agencies, and then presenting to important groups like you. Thank you.
Jim, you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add. Just thank you for your time. And do you have any questions of us?
Question. Yes, Director Flynn.
Thank you. Would you consider adding a presentation? I know very little of it touches on Denver, but I'm going to be traveling on this road tomorrow. Appointment. And would you consider making a presentation to the land transportation infrastructure of the City Council? Thank you.
Other comments or questions? All right. Thank you very much, Jim and Stacy. Next, we are going to, I ask you to look over the informational items. I'm going to go ahead and ditch the committee reports today unless you have, Director Mulvey, did you have something you wanted to say about E470 real quick?
Nothing pressing.
Okay. Good enough. I'm going to go ahead and dispense with those. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just on our other matters. I was going to mention something.
Oh, yeah. To get out of here, we have some information to give you so that you can be free. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so especially for the new members, so in order to get back down to the parking garage, do not go out these doors because you can't get back in. So basically follow everybody else. You got to go out through this door and around, and you'll see folks lead you that way. But I did have one other thing I wanted to mention. I meant to mention in my executive director's report, and I forgot. So if I may, I wanted to give a special shout out to Director Harmon and her recent recognition by the Denver Business Journal is the 40 under 40. So awesome.
Weeks, okay, so.
Hey, you made it. So congratulations.
And also, if you've parked in the garage downstairs, you'll need one of these get out of jail free cards. And Melinda has those, and she'll be happy to hand them to you. Thank you, everyone. Travel safely home. We're adjourned.
Oh, my goodness.
We got through it. I know.